Johnny Carson was laughing along with everyone else as Don Rickles roasted him about his 3 ex-wives, the alimony payments, and his commitment issues, until Don delivered one particular line about Johnny's mother never teaching him how to love that made the laughter die instantly. The camera caught Johnny's smile faltering, his eyes welling up, his hand going to his face as he tried to hide that Don Rickles, his best friend, the master of insult comedy, had just found the one wound that wasn't healed. When a single tear rolled down Johnny Carson's cheek on live television and he whispered, "That's enough, Don," 300 audience members realized they were watching something that had stopped being comedy and had become cruelty, even if it was unintentional. October 17th, 1973. The Tonight Show was celebrating its 11th anniversary on NBC, and Don Rickles had been Johnny's first choice for this milestone episode. The audience was primed for a classic Rickles roasting. They'd come specifically hoping to see Mr. Warmth Savage every celebrity in sight. Don had already destroyed Ed McMahon about his weight, Doc Severinsen about his outrageous outfits, and even made a crack about the NBC executives that had the booth operators nervously checking with standards and practices. This was Rickles at his peak, the insult comic who could say anything to anyone and somehow make it feel like love. Johnny sat behind his desk in his brown suit with the wide 70s lapels, genuinely laughing at every barb. He and Don had been close friends for 15 years. They vacationed together, their wives were friends, they had dinner every Sunday when both were in town. Johnny knew what was coming when Don was a guest. 20 minutes of being called Mr. Stiff, jokes about his Nebraska roots, cracks about his salary. It was their routine, their dance, and Johnny was not only prepared for it, but looking forward to it. Being roasted by Rickles was a badge of honor in Hollywood. "Look at this guy," Don was saying, gesturing at Johnny. 3 houses, 4 cars, and 0 ability to keep a woman happy. Johnny Carson, ladies and gentlemen, proof that money can't buy you love, but it can buy you 3 really expensive divorces. The audience roared. Johnny laughed, playing into it. "At least I can afford them, Don. Unlike you, still driving that 1965 Buick." "That Buick has lasted longer than any of your marriages," Don shot back, and the audience applauded the perfect comeback. This was the rhythm they'd perfected. Don would attack, Johnny would counter when he could, and the audience would love every second. The producers had actually extended the segment by 5 minutes because it was going so well. Don was on fire, Johnny was the perfect straight man, and even the jokes about Johnny's recent 3rd divorce from Joanne Copeland seemed to be landing without any real sting. After all, Johnny had been making jokes about his own divorces for months. "You know what kills me about Johnny?" Don continued, pacing the stage now, building momentum. "The man pays more in alimony than most countries spend on defense. 3 women, Johnny. 3 women took a look at that Nebraska charm and said, 'I'll take half of everything. Thank you very much.'" Johnny was still smiling, but something in his posture shifted slightly. "Well, Don, at least I've been married. You've been torturing the same poor woman for 40 years. "Torturing? Barbara's a saint. She deserves a medal for putting up with me. Your ex-wives. They deserve those checks for putting up with you." Don was rolling now, the audience eating it up. "I mean, what does it say about a man when 3 different women would rather have his money than his company?" Ed McMahon laughed nervously. He'd noticed Johnny's jaw tighten just a fraction. The divorce from Joanne was only 6 months old, still raw, still being fought over in court. But Don didn't seem to notice the slight change in temperature. "You want to know the difference between me and Johnny?" Don asked the audience. "I come home to the same woman every night. Johnny comes home to legal documents." The audience laughed. but it was slightly less enthusiastic. Seriously, Johnny's lawyer sees him more than any woman ever has. That's very funny, Don, Johnny said, his voice still light but with an edge creeping in. Funny? It's tragic, Don pressed on. Here's a man who can make all of America laugh, but can't make one woman stay. What is it, Johnny? You boring in person? You only interesting for an hour a night? Maybe if your relationships lasted longer than your monologue. Don, Johnny said, a warning note now clear. But Don was in his zone, that place where comedians sometimes go, where they can't see the cliff approaching. I figured it out, though. I know why Johnny can't keep a woman. It's because the only person Johnny Carson ever really loved is Johnny Carson. These women figured out they were props, just like this desk, just like these cameras. That's getting a little personal, Don, Johnny said, his smile completely gone now. The audience had grown noticeably quieter. This was starting to feel different from the usual Rickles routine. You want to know what I really think? Don continued, not reading the room at all. I think Johnny's problem started way before these marriages. I think it goes all the way back to Norfolk, Nebraska. Little Johnny Carson, the kid whose mother Ruth never once told him she loved him. That's your real problem, isn't it, Johnny? The studio went completely silent. Johnny's face had gone pale. This wasn't public knowledge. Johnny's difficult relationship with his cold, withholding mother was something he'd only shared with very close friends, including Don, in private moments. The audience didn't understand the significance, but they could feel something had fundamentally shifted. That's enough, Don, Johnny said quietly. But Don, perhaps emboldened by years of friendship that he thought gave him license, pressed on. No wonder you can't make a marriage work. How can you love someone when your own mother never taught you how? Ruth Carson, folks, the woman who created a son who could make everyone laugh except himself. The woman who never once said, "I'm proud of you," even when her boy conquered television. Johnny's hands were gripping the desk edge now, his knuckles white. Ed McMahon started to stand up, ready to intervene. Doc Severinsen had put down his trumpet. The audience was frozen, sensing they were witnessing something terrible. You know what Ruth told Johnny when he got the Tonight Show? Don continued, his voice taking on a cruel edge he'd never used before. She said, I guess that's nice, but when are you going to get a real job? This is the woman who raised him, folks. No wonder he pays women to leave him. It's the only kind of love he understands. Transactional, just like Mom's. Don, stop. Johnny's voice was barely audible, but the microphone caught it. What kills me, Don said, either not hearing or not caring, is that Johnny's still trying to make Ruth proud, and she's been dead for 2 years. Every joke, every show, every success, it's all for a woman who couldn't love him when she was alive. And these wives? They were just Ruth all over again. Cold, disappointed, impossible to please. That's when the camera caught it, a single tear rolling down Johnny Carson's left cheek. He wasn't sobbing, wasn't breaking down dramatically. Just one tear, and his hand going up to his face to hide it. That's enough, Don, Johnny said, his voice breaking as he wiped the tear away. But another followed, then another. Johnny Carson, the coolest man in America, was crying on his own show. Don finally stopped, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Johnny, You know what, Don? Johnny's voice was shaking now. You're right. You're absolutely right. My mother never loved me. Never once said she was proud. Even when I stood in this studio, #1 in America, she asked when I was going to do something meaningful. More tears came. And yes, I married women just like her. Cold women, disappointed women. Women I could never make happy no matter how hard I tried. The audience was in absolute shock. Some were crying themselves. This wasn't supposed to happen. Johnny Carson didn't cry. He didn't break. He was the stable presence in American homes every night. You want to know the truth, Don? The real truth. Johnny was looking directly at his friend now, tears streaming freely. I don't know how to love anyone, because you're right. She never taught me. I can make people laugh. I can make them feel good for an hour. But I can't make anyone stay because I don't know how to be real with them. I don't know how to be vulnerable, except apparently right now, in front of 20 million people. Don's face had gone white. Johnny, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, Johnny said. And maybe I needed to hear it. Maybe everyone needed to see that the great Johnny Carson is just a damaged kid from Nebraska, still trying to get his dead mother to love him. He laughed bitterly through his tears. 3 divorces, Don. 3 women who saw through the act. 3 women who realized I could give them everything except the one thing they needed, genuine emotional connection. Ed McMahon walked over from his desk. Johnny, we should go to commercial. No, Johnny said firmly. Let them see this. Let them see what Don Rickles found, the broken part I've been hiding for 48 years. He looked directly into the camera, his face wet with tears. This is who Johnny Carson really is, America. A man who can't love properly because he was never shown how. Don Rickles stood frozen on the stage, his face stricken with horror at what he'd done. Johnny, please. I went too far. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Johnny took a shaky breath, wiping his face with his handkerchief. It's okay, Don. You said what everyone thinks anyway. Poor Johnny Carson. Can't keep a woman. Pays fortune in alimony. The lonely king of late night. His voice was hollow, defeated. Congratulations. You found the one thing I can't joke about. My mother. The audience didn't know what to do. Some were crying openly. Others sat in stunned silence. A woman in the front row called out, We love you, Johnny. No, Johnny said quietly. You love the character. The guy who makes you laugh before bed. You don't know me. Don just showed you me, the real me, and look how uncomfortable you all are. Don walked over to Johnny's desk. Johnny, I crossed a line. Your mother, that was private. That was between friends. I shouldn't have. You're fired as my friend, Johnny said. And though he tried to make it sound like a joke, everyone could hear the pain underneath. But seriously, Don, you're right about everything. I've been in therapy for 5 years trying to deal with it. My mother damaged me in ways I'm still discovering. Ed McMahon finally spoke. Johnny, the audience understands. Everyone has family pain. Do they, Ed? Johnny turned to the audience. How many of you had mothers who never said they loved you? Who never hugged you? Who told you crying was weakness even when your dog died? He was composing himself now, but the damage was done. I'm 48 years old and I still have dreams where my mother finally says she's proud of me. Pathetic, right? It's not pathetic, Don said, his own eyes wet now. Johnny, you're the most successful entertainer in America, despite her, not because of her. But at what cost, Don? 3 women who loved me, and I couldn't love them back properly. I could buy them things, give them a lifestyle. But emotional intimacy, I don't even know what that looks like. Johnny stood up from his desk. We're done for tonight. I can't do this anymore tonight. The October 17th, 1973 footage became known as The Night Carson Cried, though NBC tried to bury it. However, the incident had been seen by 20 million people live, and the damage to both men's carefully crafted personas was permanent. Don Rickles didn't appear on The Tonight Show for 6 months, the longest absence in their friendship. When he finally returned in April 1974, the first thing he did was apologize on air, saying simply, I hurt my best friend. Comedy should never do that. Johnny's relationship with his audience fundamentally changed after that night. He became more honest about his struggles, occasionally referencing his therapy. his difficulties with intimacy, even his mother. The perfect mask had cracked, and surprisingly, his ratings went up. America, it turned out, preferred the flawed human to the flawless host. Letters poured in from viewers sharing their own parental trauma, thanking Johnny for making them feel less alone. The incident accelerated Johnny's fourth marriage to Alexis Moss in 1987, which finally lasted. In a 1990 interview, Johnny credited that night with forcing him to confront his issues. "Don Rickles did me a favor, though it took me years to realize it. He forced me to face the truth about my mother's impact on my life. That public breakdown led to the intensive therapy that finally helped me learn how to love someone properly." Ruth Carson had died in 1971, 2 years before the incident, never having told her son she was proud of him. After Johnny's death in 2005, his personal effects included a letter he'd written to his mother but never sent, dated October 18, 1973, the day after Don's roast. It read, "Mother, Don Rickles told the world what you did to me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just sad for both of us. Your son, Johnny." The relationship between Johnny and Don survived, but was never quite the same. They remained friends until Johnny's death, but Don later admitted, "I found Johnny's breaking point that night. Some things shouldn't be touched, even in comedy. His mother was off limits, and I knew it. I betrayed a trust that took years to rebuild." At Johnny's funeral, Don was a pallbearer, crying openly as he helped carry his friend, perhaps still seeking forgiveness for the night he went too far.